As I said this morning, Ellen is a faithful gospel witness and just seeks to give herself to serving others and encouraging believers. Looking forward to her time with us this evening, so I'll go ahead and turn it over to Ellen.
Thank you so much. I love the song, Here My Lord, Send Me. But it's hard to say, send me anywhere, when the anywhere is in places that are not of our choosing, my choosing. But Cameroon was, I guess, my choosing. It was the Lord's choosing for me. But I joyfully accepted going to Cameroon. We can advance the slides. I wanted to thank the many hands that have lifted me up in prayer. And it takes so many hands to lift a missionary up to the Lord to keep them on the field. And it is not easy. There is a battle, spiritual and physical battle. And it's the Lord that keeps us there. And it's your prayers that are lifted up on our behalf. And I wanted to thank you for that. You can advance. In Cameroon, most of you know Cameroon, West Africa is on the west portion of Africa. It is 2 seasons. You can advance the slides. We have dry season and rainy season. We're in dry season right now. It will probably finish up in April, and for sure the rains will be in May. We have 6 months of each, and somebody asked me, what do you like better? I like them both, because at the end of rainy season, you're tired of rain, and at the end of dry season, you're tired of dust, and it's this red glow everywhere. And they have beautiful flowers. We have sub-Sahara desert in the north and tropical rainforest in the south and everywhere in between. And I live in the mountains, and it's cooler weather in the mountains, and I love it. I asked my roommate recently if she wanted to move to Yaoundé because I had an opportunity to work at the ministry that I began at. And my roommate said, no, I'm not moving to Yaoundé. It is way too hot there. And I said, well, if you're not moving, I'm not moving. But I just knew it wasn't God's will for me to move. And it's not just because of the climate. The Lord has put me in Banjul, and I know that that's where he wants me to stay. The next slide. This is Africa. The roads are what they are. You walk on the bridges before you cross them. You don't want to have any kind of accident on the bridge. You want to make sure you check it out. The roads can be unpaved. There can be accidents on the roads. I was in Akoya, and we went over a bridge, and we got our tire stuck in one of the logs. So the driver said, everybody out, we're gonna, pull out this vehicle. And so they had to get a wrench and wrench it up and pull it out. And so it's always interesting. Africa has a flavor of its own. The next slide, there are overloaded vehicles, the big logging trucks. I fear when I get behind one of those logging trucks, because if they go a little bit off the road, their tires can go into a ditch and tip the truck. And also, they have overloaded vehicles. They have push carts where they put cars on it. And the next slide shows the creativity of the African people. I mean, whether it's wood or bricks or bananas or plantains, they're going to find a way to haul the produce or whatever. And it's fun to see their creativity. They can make a tin can a nothing tin can and make a vehicle out of it. It's so cool. The next slide shows the different animals. A lot of people say, I bet snakes are the worst problem you have in Africa. And it's not. I mean, it's a rare thing. I just tell people, if you're going to show me a snake without its head, because the snake can come back to bite you. And so we have lots of animals. We do not have elephants and giraffes where we are. You have to go to the far north to see those. And we haven't been to the far north ever since the Bachmans have left and the Studdards. And so I don't even know if those game parks are like they used to be, because the tourism kept those animals alive and well. And so we don't even go up there anymore. The next slide shows the different fruits and food. I love pineapple and mangoes and guavas and bananas. A lot of people will buy me bananas when I'm here, and I said, oh, I'm so sorry I don't eat bananas in America. I mean, I can pull them off my tree in the backyard, and they're wonderful. You have to let them ripen a little bit, but they're wonderful and sweet. And the next slide shows the many diseases we have in Africa. Goiters, we see this a lot in Akoya, where people will have these big, big goiters from not eating iodized salt. And the girl on the left, her name was Mizpah. She had a surgery a year ago because she had club feet and she walked like this on her feet. And it was very painful. And she said that she didn't think she would ever get married if she didn't have surgery or if she didn't walk normally. And she asked Pastor Felix, one of our national pastors, do you know anybody that could help me? And he called me and said, Ellen, can you please find a way to help this girl? She's 16 and she has painful club feet. And I said, well, I'll see what I can do. We sent her to a mission hospital, and a year later, she's walking without a walker, and they had to break her tarsals and realign them and splint them so her feet would be going out. But if you can only imagine the pain that she experienced pain with trying to relearn how to walk. And the Lord just gave her the endurance and the perseverance, and she is now walking without a walker. The girl in the middle, her name is Doris. It's 2006. I was on a bush trip in Cameroon, and she had malaria. And I can remember Doris was so sick and her nose was running, and she just had this fearful look on her face. And I did take this picture, but when we flew her out to a mission hospital, she had malaria and pneumonia and severe malnutrition. And they thought she was going to die, but they were able to rejuvenate her. We were able to keep her in, she lived with me for the summer, then she lived with a pastor and his wife for a couple years. They sent her back to Akoya, and then she was starting to grow older, and she really needed somebody to love on her and show her, teach her, because she was in 5th grade and she didn't know how to read or write. And she was going through many changes in her life. And so the next slide shows Doris living in my home. She's on the right and the left. And she was a vibrant girl. She helped me with slaughter chickens and cook in Japsha and help me make plums. And we just, we taught her by scratch. She told us she was in the 5th grade, but she didn't even know the alphabet. And so we had to bring her way back to the basic levels, teaching her the colors and the alphabet. And by the time 3 years went by, she was able to read and write. And I don't credit that to myself. I had two homeschool teachers that had a lot of patience with Doris, and they were willing to teach her one-on-one for 3 years. And the next slide shows just my love in visiting people and praying for people. Right now, since since there's a war in the Northwest and Southwest, I'm not able to go into those regions on mobile medical clinics. So what I do now is go to the hospital and visit people, and go to the village when I know somebody has had an accident. And I do a lot of visits with sick people and pray with them, and just to know, to use my skills like a community health nurse would use their skills, but just go into these villages and hospitals and pray with people and tell them how much you care for them. And then the next slide shows the different ministries I've had medically. I've worked at camp. I've worked a camp ministry, and I love doing that, but that was in the Northwest, so we haven't been able to do camp ministry. And we did hospital physicals school physicals when we were in Foonbahn, and mobile medical clinics. And so that was something that I love doing, but we cannot, because of the nature of our country right now, we can't gather people together. And because of our authorization, we're not able to work in the French zone with doing mobile medical clinics. The next slide shows a prison ministry, and camp is in the middle, and mobile medical clinics to the left. And just because I need to keep my nursing license up, I have to do my CEUs, and I have 1 more month to get these CEUs done. They're called continuing education units, and I have to get 30 done a year. So I'm working on that, so I'd appreciate prayer there that I would get all these done before April, the end of April. And then I am thinking about going to Zambia in May and doing a medical outreach. I was supposed to go with Jack and Jennifer Mitchell to Mexico in January. That's what brought me to the States. But several people on our team got COVID, and 2 of them were the spouses of the 2 that had COVID. So we had 4 people out with COVID problems. And so we didn't go to Mexico in January, so I decided to come on a short furlough. The next slide shows just the bush ministries, whether going by boat or trekking with cargo on your head. I didn't trek very far with the cargo that was on my head. I went just a small distance, and I passed it over to somebody who could do that. It takes training. You have to start when you're younger with a little bucket on your head, and then you put water on it, and you start filling it. And then by the time you're an adult, you can get a 50-pound sack of rice and put it on your head and transport it. But you can't start out that way. The next slide shows a picture of Dr. Buechler in the middle. I love to do medical work, but I really do not love medical work to be done on me. And I told the ladies of this story after I had my surgery. I really, really wanted a picture of Dr. Buechler, and it just did not work for me to get a picture of him. And so I went home, I got on the airplane, was coming back 6 years ago for just a recovery after my surgery. And I really prayed, and I was very disappointed because I couldn't get get a picture of my surgeon. And I thought, oh, I really wanted to get that picture because I don't know if I'll ever see him again. And it just didn't work out that I could talk anybody into going to the hospital. It would have taken just way too much time. So my sister came to Germany for after my surgery, and she allowed me to, she upgraded my ticket to Economy Plus, and there was a man working in front of me, and I was tucking everything away, and I looked up, and there was my surgeon coming down the aisle, and I was just so thrilled. I said, "Dr. Bushler, you're on this plane. What are you doing on the plane?" And he says, "I'm going to Chicago for a big medical conference." And I said, "I have wanted a picture of you. Could I please get a picture?" And it was just God's reminder that, you know, he answers prayers. I really wanted a picture, but it just didn't work. And God allowed me to get a picture of him on the airplane going to Chicago O'Hare a couple weeks after my surgery. And I don't think that is by chance. I mean, God orchestrated that. I really prayed hard about a picture. And it just reminded me that God is concerned about everything in our life, and we can allow him to have the reins and the control in our life. And he will do what is good for us. And it just was a kind reminder that God is watching over me, and he's answering prayer. And I know he cares about my family too, my unsaved family that needs the Lord. And the next picture is, I love this saying, God made you to do the hard thing in the good story he is writing in your life. That's by Catherine Wolfe. She has a book that is just tremendous on Hope Heals. And if you haven't read that book, I just would encourage you to read that book and her story. But we all have a story, and God wants to take our story and use it for his honor and glory while we're here on this earth. And the next slide is he can use us in different ways. Somebody asked me, now that you have cancer, you probably could just stay in the United States, right? And I said, well, why would I want to do that? I mean, I don't think the Lord's finished with me yet. I still have a lot to do. And I have a lot of visitors in my home. I receive, like, the African people that come. I do help with church planting. I help with Bible studies and Bible clubs. And the Lord has a lot for all of us to do. And I don't think I want just a way out. God called me to Cameroon 25 years ago, and I want to serve him until he sees fit to take me wherever he would take me. And the next slide shows the friends that I've had. The lady on the left is one of my good friends that has helped me out for years. We have people over for Sunday lunch, and the kids, the younger boys on the right, I knew them when they were very, very small, and their youngest brother had a drowning accident, and when we found out, we went to minister to this Muslim family. And the next slide shows the mother on the left, and she is a precious lady, and I know my other missionary friend that speaks Fulfulde really well has witnessed to her many times, and she says, yes, I understand, but she doesn't speak French or English that well, and so we just continue to show love to her, and love is a universal language, and we sat by her after the death of her son and just told her how much we loved her, and we were praying for her, and Jesus could help her through this. And she said, yes, yes, yes. And the lady on the right is my neighbor, and her daughter died of cancer, and I was able to just minister to her And we continue to try to minister to her and just be there for her. And she inherited many grandchildren after her daughter passed away, and we never knew if her daughter really accepted the Lord. And the next slide shows the ministry of Bible Club. We took a lot of those kids at this grandmother's house, and we asked if we could do a Bible club with them. And so they allowed the whole tribe of children to come down to the house. And we told our other neighbors about our Bible club. And for a week, we had Bible club. And there was ended up being 33 people altogether in our Bible club. And I had a hat on, and it's a cheap, like Walmart kind of hat with a spiral in the back. And I said, somebody is going to win this hat. And this little boy said, it's going to be me. And I'm like, well, I hope so, you know. But he's like going like this in the picture. And I thought, oh, wow, over a little hat. And it's so great. And I don't know if he won that hat or not, but he won other gifts if he didn't win the hat. And then the next picture is a group of the next picture, the next slide, is a group of our 33 children that we had. And we did Bible club with them, and they played on the grass. And the next picture is the time that they had. They said, can we come into your yard and roll in your grass? We do not have grass in our yards. They're farms, and we have beans and corn, and we just want to roll in your grass. And so if you advance the next button, I think it shows them rolling in the grass. And, you know, so I said, Simon says, raise your right hand in French, and raise your left hand, raise your legs, and come up and give me 5. And they were just so excited. And so every day they would come and say, can I play in your grass? And so they were really cute. But they were very rambunctious. It was very, very hard to keep them calmed down. And so the next slide shows the children's church ministry. And these kids have to have rules. We said no talking, no leaving, no hitting your neighbor. If you do any of these things, if you even put your toe outside this room, you lose your bonbon. And so it was uncontrollable at first because they would be out. And it's amazing that everybody has to go to the bathroom immediately when they get into the room. And I said, you know what? You're not going to have your bonbon. Sit down. And and it works. It's not total bribery, but it is bribery. And they want that little bonbon, and they want the gifts that come with, you know, answering all those questions. And so then I said, you know, I have a Mambo bar, this chocolate bar that Pastor Mossman loves. And his kids, and I said, I have a Mambo bar for whoever will clean this room for next week. I'm gonna do it. And so this is the excitement they get into. So the next slide shows the Bible lesson. We use like the Becca, and just goes through the lesson. We go through questions and answers, and the next slide is our church ministry building from ground up. When the Mossmans left, we ended up moving from the center of town to the outskirts of town because we were paying a lot of money for the building in the center of town. The leadership said that they wanted to build on this property on the outskirts of town. And so we did that. Everybody pitched in. Everybody did a little bit of work. And the next slide shows our first service. It was rainy season. It was just beginning. And we had our first service, and we brought our umbrellas. If it was sunny, we shaded ourselves, and if it rained, we had an umbrella throughout the service as well. And by February 2021, it was pretty much finished, but in a raw form still. The next slide shows my coworkers, the Barillas, and Marnie Kraus. We all work together. There's the four of us that are doing the church planning work. We have a national pastor called Pa Thomas and his wife Delphine that has been instrumental during COVID times when the missionaries were not in Cameroon. He took over and he preached on Sundays. The next slide shows a man that is very, very interested in getting education. His name is Idris. He needs training and encouragement. And Pa Thomas said he really does not want to be in charge of the church. He's getting older. He just wants to be someone who comes alongside a pastor. And so Idris in December said he would really like to get training, but a big problem that he has now is he could not get work. And so he moved to Mbuda, which is about an hour, a little over an hour away from Bafoussam, and it will be very difficult to give him training if he doesn't move back to Bafoussam, and if the Lord doesn't provide something for him in Bafoussam. So just pray. This man really does have a heart for the Lord, and we're praying that he will take over the church. The next slide is just the progress in building the building, putting a roof over it. We have two buildings. One building is supposed to be a Bible Institute one day. Another building is the church, and just the building that you see on the left is the church building. We've had baptisms in the river next to the church. The next slide shows a ministry project that somebody gave me. We had I've been in Germany many, many times, and they asked me if I needed more support, and I said, no, I'm doing fine. And they said, so do you have a project that you needed to have done? And I said, well, I would really like running water every day, and I don't want to run for it. I want it to be inside the house. And we would go twice a week and have these big jugs, throw them in my truck, and we would go about 4 miles away to a big well and pump water and bring it back to the house. It was a lot of work, and it was a lot of time spent just on getting water. And so this church took it on that they would help finance a well. And I had a man that dug 20 meters down, and he did a completely round, meter round hole. He dug, and it was perfect. I mean, perfect for cylinders to go down. And we lined the bottom with cement cylinders halfway and put a big pipe down there, and we piped it up. I think the next slide shows the reservoir on the right-hand side. That's the well, the digging of the well. The next slide shows the reservoir on the right side, and just reaching down and getting water and just emptying the well so you can go down 2 more feet. So we're praying that we can talk the original men in to going down during dry season and digging about 2 to 3 more meters. They refused. They got to a certain level and they said, we're not doing it anymore. And I begged him, please, will you just do 3 more meters? And he said, you get down there and dig 3 more meters. We're not. We're finished. And so I just had to be satisfied and say, okay, Lord, this is it. But during dry season, it gets a little cloudy and we can't pump quite so much. But it has been a huge blessing. And so we've shut off city water, and that's all we run on is this well water. And it's been a huge blessing. We pump about twice a week. The next slide is prayer requests. Pray, if you want to write some of these down, pray that God will work in the hearts of our church people. They really need to grow in the Lord. It's very distressing to look around the church and the teenagers are on their cell phones and some of the adults, and the phone will go off. They won't put it on silence. The phone will go off. Many adults will leave the church service, come back a half hour later, and the phone is a real distraction in our church. And the people need to grow and they need to learn of him and trust him, just like we have to trust him. Just pray for the national pastor, Idris. I really believe that God has been working in his heart to be the next pastor, but it has to be God doing the work. He's very interested in a pastor's daughter, and he really, really wants to pursue her. But the uncle is a pastor and the father is a pastor. And they're like, I don't think they're pressuring him to be a pastor, but he really has a desire to learn the Bible. So pray for Idris. Pray that he would be able to come back to Bafoussam and be trained under the leadership that we have there. And pray for Flora. She's going through many trials. She had COVID in December and really had a hard time after COVID. And she has asthma and she could not breathe well. And so that has made her very fearful to go out and be exposed to other people. And I'm just praying that the Lord would use this COVID in her life to grow her. The next slide is pray for God's timing and restarting the Bible Club. We'd like to do Bible clubs on Saturday. Only the Lord knows about that, when it's best. But we're also wanting to go to Zambia in May. And so we need to be able to coordinate all that. And I need to keep up my nurse's license. I have to get my continuing education credits. I need to get active in doing nursing. You can't just say you're actively a nurse when you haven't done nursing. And I just think it's dishonest to say, yes, I am I want active status, and I'm not active. So this is the way I can keep active to keep my license up. Also pray for my health. I do have a tumor about the size of $0.50 in my liver, and it is not growing right at this moment. And I'm just praying that God would just put his hedge of protection around that tumor. And he knows what is best for my life, and I want to serve him. And I pray that I can just see the spiritual things out of the next procedure that I have to undertake. And, I go in and pray and pray and pray, and the doctor says, we think you should get another taste procedure. And that's to put chemo in the tumor and lock it with a blood clot. And I think, oh, Lord, who do you want me to witness to now? And it's been an opportunity. I go in for these taste procedures. When they pull that catheter, they have to hold pressure for 10 minutes. And that is my golden opportunity to witness, because that doctor cannot leave me for 10 minutes, else I will bleed to death. And so I asked them, so what church are you going to? And they're like, I don't go to church. And I'm like, really? Why don't you go to church? And it gives me an open opportunity to give them the gospel. And I try to do that with every single one that pulls that catheter. And so many have heard the gospel. Many have received books and calendars and spiritual tracts. And so I am just praying that the Lord would use these to see some of these doctors get saved. And the last doctor, he gave me what he thought I needed to do next. And he said, may I ask you a question now? And he said, I'd like to know what you think of capital punishment. And I said, oh my, nobody's ever asked me that before. And I said, but it doesn't matter what I think about capital punishment. And I gave him the gospel. And he sat there for 20 minutes and listened to me. And he said, wow, that's not what I expected. But he was willing to listen. And I said, do you like to read? And he said, yes, I do. And so I gave him this book in German about Jesus and who Jesus is. And I just pray that God uses each opportunity for his honor and glory. And it's fun to be a missionary when we have all these great success stories, people getting saved, and you know, you're out there evangelizing and the church is growing. But what about the time that's not the way God wants to use you? Maybe he wants you to be, to do the hard thing in the good story that he wants to write for your life. And maybe it's you're in bed and you are going to be a witness to the next person that comes in and does some treatment on you. It's a different story. And that wasn't what I signed up for 25 years ago but I know the Lord is using it, and he can use all of our stories. And just pray for travel mercies. It's not easy traveling internationally. I mean, in the States, it's not bad, but internationally, you're signing your life away every international trip you're taking, and you're getting COVID tests and retests and signing papers saying that you haven't had a cough for the last week, or you'll promise to be in quarantine after you get off the plane. And so it's been interesting. COVID has been real interesting, but I think it's taught us a lot about just trusting him again. And the next slide is a verse that really means a lot to me. I was teaching Sunday school, and Samuel, in 1 Samuel 12:24, says, only fear the Lord and serve him in truth with all your heart, for consider how great things he hath done for you. He has done great things for us. And why should we complain about this little tumor in my liver? I mean, why should I complain about that? Why should I complain about these little things that are just a moment of time in all of eternity? And I like this quote: we are all disabled. None of us have unlimited access to whatever we want or whatever we planned for our lives. And so we don't have access to unlimited resources. We don't have access to unlimited things that we have planned. But God does have those resources, and he wants to use us limitless. He wants to use us in a way that we haven't planned on. And I love this quote: could there be a more comforting thought than knowing you are being prayed for when your own prayers have been stretched to their breaking point? And one thing I love about being a missionary is I know people are praying. And so I wanted to thank you so much for praying for me. And thank you for just loving missionaries. It's been a joy to be here. And I am just asking the Lord to just use me for his honor and glory in whatever way he would choose. And it's his life, it's his plan, and I just want to be available to do his will, his way. Does anybody have any questions? Okay. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Ellen. I have some questions for you folks, though. Okay, now Ellen can't answer, and my family can't answer this. So what is a bonbon? Besides the language, the linguist in the back. Okay, go ahead. Yeah, so candy, good. Second question, now again, not those who are from that area or been over there. Where is Yaoundé? And what is Yaoundé? Anybody know? She talked about maybe she had an opportunity to go down to Yaoundé. What's Yaoundé? Well, what is it? Anybody? Okay, well, that's the capital city, so there's some good things down there. They have pistachio ice cream down there that's pretty good. We had a pastor visit and took him down there on his way out, and he had pistachio ice cream at the ice cream shop, then went over to the large supermarket, like a Kroger, and they sold ice cream there from the same store, and he bought another thing of pistachio ice cream there. So how deep is 20 meters? Who's our builder? How deep is 20 meters? Yeah, so 60, let's just say 60, 70 feet. How would you feel about digging a hand-dug well that deep? You can understand why they didn't want to go any further. People do die over there from that. And last question, did you notice in the picture at the clinic the white man that was walking in through the corridor in the background? Notice that? He had a very similar haircut to mine. Okay, if you come up with it, you can raise your hand. I just want to close our time with just one text and a few thoughts, and really appreciate Ellen and the work that she's doing there. You can tell her heart for the gospel, for Jesus Christ, for others. In Matthew, this is a text I'm going to talk through, and I actually came to this morning in my natural reading. I knew that with Ellen coming, just putting a cap on her time here from the Word, that there was a lot of different texts that I've gone through in the past, and we've looked at this before, but I really want to focus in on just one aspect of this as we look at it. I'm going to read down through it and make some comments, okay? This is the Great Commission. This is missions. This is the commission to direct us into missions, okay? And notice this, it's really easy. We're going to go over this again and again over the years, and you're going to be able to tell the different parts to this as you look at it too. The first part that we are introduced in this commission text is the person of the commission. The person of the commission is first. And you see that in verse 16 and following. Then the 11 disciples went away into Galilee, into a mountain where Jesus had appointed them. And when they saw him, they worshiped him, but some doubted. Why were they worshiping him? Well, because they knew who he was, but what was it that just struck them about him? This wasn't just the normal Jesus that they came to follow for three and a half years, or this is the resurrected Jesus, the person of the commission. Remember, the commission could have been given prior to the death of Christ. It wasn't. It was given after. The person of the commission is the resurrected Jesus. And as I'm working down through this, my question is, just take note of the work of God surrounding this. Okay, let's keep reading. The next part to it is the power of the commission, or the power of missions work. You'll see that in verse 18, and Jesus came and spake unto them, saying, all power is given unto me in heaven and in earth. That's not talking about the power of ability. That would be true. He's God. But what kind of power is that talking about? Not the power of ability, but the power of what? Of authority. Now, it's interesting. This is talking about that he has been given everything that makes him the ultimate, all authoritative sovereign. Nowhere in any aspect, visible or invisible, is he not sovereign. He's sovereign over all. And if you look at the book of Philippians, you can look at other texts, but it's clear that in Philippians 2, 9 through 11, that this is a work of God the Father giving this unto him. And this is what you see in this text. It's given unto him. Again, note this is a supernatural work. It's a supernatural resurrected Christ. It's a supernatural giving to him by God the Father to be the ultimate sovereign over all. Then you have this. Third part to it is the plan of the Great Commission. So you have the person, the power, and the plan. Go ye therefore and teach all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Ghost, teaching them to observe all things whatsoever I've commanded you. Well, when you think of that plan, we know this, and we've talked about it, the central idea, the central command is to make disciples of all nations. Surrounding that are these different aspects of going, baptizing, and teaching them. Okay, that's surrounding it, but the central thing is make disciples. Isn't this incredible? And we pointed this out before. It doesn't say to go and preach the gospel. What it does is it commands us to see the effect of preaching the gospel take place in all nations. What power do you or I have to affect that kind of change in the souls of men? That they would be made, supernaturally made something that they are not. That the enemies of Jesus Christ, those that are enslaved by the world and their sin, would embrace Jesus Christ, repenting of their sin, repenting of their unbelief, and wholly embrace Jesus Christ as their Lord and Master. That there be a new birth in them. That they become something that they were not, destined for a place that they were not before destined. What ability do we have to affect that kind of change? Yet that's what we're commanded to do. In 1 Corinthians 3, 6 through 9, we're told how this is going to happen. We all have our part, but it says in that text in verse 6, God gave the increase. And again, it says in verse 7, but God giveth the increase. So we go and we're doing this work that we have no ability to ensure that it will take place, but we're commanded to make sure that we do this in all nations. That is a supernatural work. All this, the work of God. And then the last part, and I just love this. Look at the last part of verse 20. And lo, I am with you always, even unto the end of the world. Amen. This is the promise of that commission. You know, when you get to this promise, you get to that point that those who have gone and sacrificed and given themselves to proclaim the gospel to the othermost parts of the earth, there comes this point when everything's stripped away and the thing that they can lay hold of is this, that the Lord is with them in this work. He's there to comfort, he's there to encourage, he's there to strengthen them in this work. This is a personal, continual, perpetual promise. It is a reality, it is empowering, and it is encouraging. And if all those other aspects involve a supernatural work, does this not that he is with all of us, as all of us, wherever we are engaged in this work, that he is with all of us in this way? That's only by God. That is a work of God. And each one that gives themselves to this knows his presence. So as we close our time, I just want to encourage us as we close here that we would just throw ourselves upon the Lord and Ellen and her work there in Cameroon, and just really go with confidence and seek the Lord that he would do the work that only he can do. we would have good courage, that we would go forth ourselves and proclaim and take part in thrusting out these that are doing this work, and that we would have this confidence of his empowering and blessing in it, as he promised to be with us and with those that are going to bring the gospel to the uttermost parts of the earth. We're going to close our time with singing a hymn, Send the Light, and